Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Why is it so special? Because I don't really know what the fuck we're going to talk about today. Yes, I do. We've got the All Elite Wrestling Full Gear pay-per-view to discuss today. Plus, we've got story time with the Tennessee stud. Ron Fuller is back to talk about a very special event. We're going to complain about some more people and do some more things. I've had a busy week, and to join me in complaining, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, Swammy's okay. He's the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, and he's without a doubt, I'm changing his name. Instead of the Great Brian Last, from now on, it's going to be the Great Humble Brian Last. He's Humble Brian, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
Aloha, Jim. I'm doing spectacular today.
You're so humble and lovable.
I think
little
so.
shoe shine boy. You aren't doing good. You're creeping and crudding, and you're sick. You're sick boy today. You've just been complaining to me for 15 minutes about how sick you've been all week.
Well, as soon as the weather got cold, and it got really cold really fast here, I got sick, Suzanne got sick, and it's going through the house now, and it's apparently going through the neighborhood. Everyone's starting to get sick. They're getting their first colds of the season. Yes, thank you.
Got cold here real quick. It's supposed to be cold in the greater metropolitan New York area. Up there in the Northeast, it's supposed to be cold. Do you know what the temperature was here in Louisville, Kentucky this past Monday?
30 degrees.
The shits is what it was. On October 3rd here in Louisville, Kentucky, we had a record high temperature. It was 96 degrees on October 3rd. 40 days later, when we're supposed to be enjoying our fall with the nice temperatures, it was 14 degrees, a record low. Just Monday, between 2 p.m. when it was 60 degrees and I was outside in the driveway in a t-shirt, puttering about, trying to straighten some things up outside in the yard, 60 degrees at 2 o'clock, 9 o'clock, it was 30 degrees. We had an inch of snow on the ground. Do you know when the last time it was that we had an inch of snow on November the 12th?
No.
Never.
Wow.
There's never been measurable snowfall in Louisville, Kentucky on that day before. Everybody's sick because the environment is poisoned. The Republicans have poisoned the environment. They've ruined the climate. We're all going to burn and freeze and die from here on out because of the Republicans. Shitty weather.
I was blaming Mother Nature, but yes.
You silly boy. Silly boy. You can't blame Mother Nature. You have to put the blame where it belongs, on the Republicans, like they're doing this week with the impeachment hearings, where more people testify that Donald Trump, the pig-faced piece of shit that he is running this country like a goddamn mob boss runs the fucking south side of the Bronx. Except he's not real good at it because everybody knows, and everybody's known all along, and all the intelligent people in the world have predicted this. And the more the people come up and testify, yes, that's exactly what he's doing, the more that the Republican enablers in our government go, no, he's not. No, he's not. He's not really a crook. He's not an idiot. He's not an imbecile. He's not lying. No. You know what it is? What it is now they're so fucking miserable because not only were they proven to be idiots between 2008 and 2016 when we had an actual real president that showed us the way the thing should be done, but now because they were so mad the black guy won and they fucking got the guy to take the country back, and he did for himself. And now they're so mad that the fucking, can't even call him a white guy, that the orange guy wasn't better than the black guy. Indeed, he's a complete imbecile and a crook and a buffoon and an asshole and incompetent and a blithering idiot and not measurable or comparable in any way to the fine president that we had between 2008 and 2016 that saved us from the fucking fuck up that the last Republican in office caused. They're so mad that they've been proven to be the inferior race. I'm racist. I hate white people because they're inferior. Apparently they are, because if this is the best one you could find, he's inferior to the black man. And they're mad about it. And so they sit there and they go, oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. We're right. We really are. He's not a crook.
It's even more offensive when they say he tells the truth. It's like, how do you say that with a straight face? He's truthful. No, he's not. About anything. By the way, you know who he's become like the most punchable guy in America. You look at him, you just want to go crazy.
Devin Nunes.
No, even more than him. That mouth-breathing Jim Jordan. Blind-eye Jim. The guy who let all those kids get molested under his watch. And, he just laughed about it, apparently. It's been all over the news. And now he's turning a blind eye again to everything that's happening to the country. Blind-eye Jim.
Well, if you would rather have the job you have rather than reporting on kids getting diddled in the shower, then I assume you'd rather have the job you have rather than bring a fucking criminal fucking president to justice. That's just me, though. That's just my figuring. But anyway, so the impeachment hearings are telling us what we all already knew, and that has happened. And maybe it's, maybe it's in time. Maybe it'll be too late. When the history books are written about this whole time period, and the Republican Party has been abolished out of shame because of what they have done to hasten the demise of the human species on the planet Earth. When they write these books, Adam Schiff, I think, is going to be the modern American hero who was the one who was going to push this to the bitter end to get this motherfucker out of here. But at the same time, history will not record the Trumpanzees or the people who enabled him or the people who voted for him very kindly. They will be looked on as the type of people that supported all the other fucking cretins through history, which is not very fucking good. And people will be going, what the fuck were they thinking? Anyway, speaking of what the fuck were they thinking, just real quick, I haven't been banned from anything this week. However, there was another attention-seeking fat fuck that I was going to fucking speak about this week, but Stephen P. New got to him first. And I tell you, the thing is with Stephen P. New, and this is not even a plug, ladies and gentlemen, it's just that he seeks these people out and he makes them modify their behavior. I think if Stephen P. New had had Adam Schiff's job, we'd even be further along in this process. But it's amazing when these people run their dick lickers, what you can find out about them when you have an attorney on the case, whether they've written bad checks or they got bad credit or bad driving records, they're unsavory people, they don't use their left and right turn indicators, all because they want attention. And they want us to talk about them, Brian, in front of our millions and millions of listeners. Then they have to, this guy's not going to be publicly dressed down because he's already been privately dressed down. He dresses down every time I've ever seen him. As a matter of fact, he looks like a homeless bum. But anyway, but so I haven't been banned from anything and I don't even have to blister anybody new. Isn't that nice?
Boy, Stephen P. New, what a great attorney, what a great friend, the kind of guy you want on your side no matter what's happening.
He's a humanitarian, and he saved a couple people from getting shit shoved up their ass, too, on the other side. So there's that.
It's the kind of guy you want next to you in a foxhole.
I don't know if I want to be in a foxhole, but if I was, I guess I'd rather be next to Stephen P. New. Instead of you, probably, because you'd give me whatever cold you've got. You're sick.
Please. You'd give me whatever you got. You were sick first.
All righty. Anyway, speaking of sick, folks, I am not yet sick of sending out Cornette's collectibles to the throngs of admirers, the waiting public. I have my notes here somewhere on what I'm sending out, but I can do it off the top of my head. But even better, I will do it right off the top of my notes here. The Houston's Wrestling Spectacular 4-hour DVD, only $15 with Dusty Rhodes, Bruiser Brody, Nick Bockwinkel, Jack Briscoe, and Bull Curry versus Johnny Valentine. The Wrestling Gold Set. People are still, they're shocked over this, that this deal can happen. 10 hours of classic 70s and 80s wrestling in a 5-disc set, library case, autographed, $9. They're stocking stuffers. We've got the Cult of Cornette membership certificates. The T-shirts are flying off the shelves. The burger towels. Folks, JimCornette.com. Click on everything, buy one of everything. But do it quickly. Do it quickly, ladies and gentlemen, because I can't be coming down your chimneys on Christmas morning. Remember, this ain't Amazon. I'm doing all this myself. I'm only one man. But we do appreciate all the feedback from the holiday sale, and the shit is being swiftly shipped as swiftly as shit can be shipped. Everybody's happy. I'm not doing anything for the next month. That's exciting.
That should make you happy.
That makes me very happy. But then I'm going to go to Atlanta. NWA Power, the studio wrestling show that has become the belle of the ball, the hit of the wrestling world by just doing actual wrestling in a studio, is going to be shooting again. The End of the Fire pay-per-view will be December 14th. The TV tapings the 15th and 16th. They are all three sold out. Why am I mentioning them, you say? Because I'm going to be there. That's my only live personal appearance in public between now and February or so at least. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody that's already got their tickets. If you haven't, you waited too long. But you can watch NWA Power every Tuesday night. It debuts, but you can watch it whenever you want on YouTube. And so many people are, and they're saying the same thing. Wow, it's guys having wrestling matches and trying to beat each other. And the matches don't last 45 fucking minutes. Good God. We'll talk about it in a minute. Anyway, before we go any further, we might as well go ahead and get Ron on the line, because we need to brighten this show up. We need to perk this up, and that's exactly what the Tennessee Stud will do. So story time is coming up as soon as, Brian, you can make the connection.
I'm making the connection right now, and I believe the Tennessee Stud is on the line.
Well, folks, at this point in time, we want to welcome back to the show a guy who's been here so many times before with Story Time with the Tennessee Stud. He has his own podcast, the Studcast. He has Patreon. He has all these type of things that Brian Last's going to go over with us, especially later on, so we get all the details right. But joining us again to promote an event coming up in Dothan, Alabama at the end of November. It's going to be on November 23rd, Saturday night in Dothan, a tribute to Bullet Bob Armstrong. Here he is, the Tennessee Stud himself, Ron Fuller. Ron, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be back, man. And before we get to jumping into this, I got to congratulate you, man. I hear you just knocking them to crazy now, man. You got your podcasts are just records week after week, and you're there on NWA now, and you're becoming my hero, man. You know, man.
You're talking to Brian Last. He's revealing all these record numbers, making me sound good. That's what it is.
No, but it's a pleasure to be with you, man.
Well, hey, we got to see each other for a second in Charlotte at the gathering, the big fan fest down there in August, and you and Robert were there, and my God, I felt like I was Cowboy Lang standing next to the two of you guys. The Welch genes grow straight up, I'll tell you that. But you are back. You've got it in your genes. You're a promoter, and you're back promoting an event, and it's a tremendous event for a tremendous person. And we just mentioned it a few minutes ago, but Saturday night, November 23rd, in Dothan, at the crossings at Big Creek. It's down there for the folks who know Dothan. It's on Highway 231 south of town. It's a great facility, and you're promoting an event that's a tribute to one of the most legendary figures in wrestling, not only that, but especially in Southern wrestling, in Continental and Southeastern, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Bullet Bob Armstrong.
Right.
And you're going to be there, and the old Continental announcer, Charlie Platt's going to be there. Of course, Brian Armstrong, Road Dogg, is going to be there. You never know which Armstrongs may show up. There's so many of them, and they can all work their ass off. And the guest of honor of the whole thing is going to be Bullet Bob. He just celebrated not only his 80th birthday, but 60 years in the professional wrestling ring, and just a tremendous legacy. And you've got promoting in your genes. You have from the time you were 2 feet tall when you were born. I assume you were about 2.5, 3 feet tall maybe when you were born, because you've got it in the family. But this is a different kind of event. It's a meet and greet. It's a celebration where you're going to show videos on the big screen of Bob, and not only of Bob, but also of superstar friends of his and stars from around the world that are cutting promos. And it's going to be kind of a multimedia event. What gave you the idea to do this? And are you looking forward to it? That's a dumb question. I know you are.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to it. And it was kind of Charlie Platt's idea, and he talked to me about it. I said, geez, Charlie, that's a great idea. I mean, and you couldn't do a tribute to a better guy. I mean, like you said, you mentioned a lot of territories Bob Armstrong's been in, and he's one of the sport's greatest, and we wanted to do something for him because he is 80 years old, and you never know anymore about how things are going to go down. So we just felt like this would be a great tribute to Bob, and we're just really excited about it. Fans' reactions around that area there has been really good for it, and we've got some tickets. They can get some tickets in advance there if they want to. If they want to get tickets in advance, there's two places they can get them. One is at Event, EVENT, Bright, BRITE, eventbrite.com, or the crossingsbigcreek.com. Individual seats, $30, and if you buy two, they're $50. And obviously, there'll be sales at the door as well. But really looking forward to it. We put a lot of time in it. We've talked to so many guys from all around the world, basically, that are going to be cutting us some promos. There's some little tribute to Bob and sending in some stories. And it'll just be a night of a lot of memories for fans that come, a lot of laughter. There's going to be a lot of jokes, obviously, as there always are in wrestling events. And a lot of love in that building, too, because Bob is just, he's so, he's a totally different individual than most wrestlers. And he just really, the fans even loved him when he was a heel. And, and he was a tremendous heel.
You tried that, and he as a heel, he was a tremendous performer, but the people still wouldn't like him even as a heel because it was Bullet, right?
Oh yeah, and he had his Fannie Mae Titweiler, and I mean, he had something coming on, something happening every week, and he's just a tremendous talent, and I'd like to invite anybody in that area that can work their way down there, and that please come see this, because I just think this event is going to be spectacular, and it's in a beautiful facility. It's a ballroom. It'll be a great event. We're thinking about DVD in it, making a video of it, and maybe sometime we'll be able to get that video out. But we just really want to get this done for Bob, and he doesn't even know about the wrestler thing. So I think that will really surprise him when we start taking these different wrestlers and showing these segments, people saying hello to him. So,
that whole area, Ron, down in, as you know well, down in the Gulf Coast and the Florida Panhandle, and Bullet Bob was the top guy, and especially a top babyface in a lot of years, where the local top babyface was the biggest sports hero in town of any professional sport. And it wasn't just like you were rooting for the guy. It was a member of the family. The Rock and Roll Express got the same treatment as did all the Southern baby faces. Their picture was up on the wall next to Jesus, right? And yeah. Whichever president was in office at the time.
Yes.
And so, a lot of these fans that loved Bob and got a chance to see him wrestle down there at the Dothan, what was it, the Houston County Farm Center?
Yep.
With the dirt floor. They got a chance to see him wrestle, but they never got a chance unless they hung out back in the parking lot to meet him or talk to him. And this is what's great about these fan fests these days, is now the people who remember seeing these guys wrestle can bring their kids to meet them and talk to them. And it's a family deal. Anyway, that's Saturday night, November 23rd. And as you said, eventbrite.com. Or crossingsbigcreek.com, right, for the advance tickets.
Yeah, the crossingsbigcreek.com, yes.
And I'm going to see if I can figure out my technological shortcomings to be one of the folks that contribute videos. But when you think about the impact that Bullet has had on wrestling, not only himself and being active in the ring all those years, and I guess he wrestled in, I haven't even counted them, was it 7 different decades? And having a career like that where he was always on top for so long, but also through his sons, Even now, Scott's refereeing in the WWE. Road Dogg was a huge star, member of DX. All the sons carried on, and they helped train and break in other guys. Even if Steve Armstrong wasn't necessarily the level of star of Stone Cold Steve Austin, he worked with and helped a lot of guys. So the Armstrongs had a great reach in wrestling and still do, as Brian is on top as a, what do they call producers, agents, creative, whatever these days. So Bullet started that whole Armstrong legacy. It's great to see him honored. Hey, on your Studcast, you tell all kinds of stories from 70 years of the Welch family and the Fuller family in wrestling. You got to have a good one about Bullet to give us here today.
Yeah, oh heck yeah, I've got a good one. Bullet was always horrified of snakes, like a lot of people. Yeah. And guys like to rib him big time about it. And one time they were working, Rob and Bullet were working in Savannah, and they somehow, it must have been a Sunday afternoon or something, and they had to fly back to Atlanta right after the matches, and they got out of the dressing room in Savannah, and they didn't have long. They were going to fly, and a couple of the girls at the arena there said, "Yeah, we'll drive you out to the airport." They were needing a ride anyway. So Bob's in the backseat of the car, and he didn't have a time to put his shirt on. He's still sweating. I don't know if they even had time to take a shower. But they stop at this little country store, and they put a gas in the car. The girl's gassing up her car. And Bob's sitting in the back seat, and Rob goes in to buy him beer, as always for Rob. And he finds in there one of those little plastic snakes about 18 inches long, right? And so he buys it. Now, Bob's in the back seat of this car, the girl's car, and Bob's never met the girl. They don't really even know her. Rob knows who the girl is, but she's nice enough to take him to the airport. Bob's in the back, and he's got the windows down. She's having a problem with her air conditioner. He's got an old car, I guess. And so Bob's got his window down. He has no shirt on or anything. And Rob comes back from buying his beer, and he just comes by the window where Bob's got it down, and he pitches this snake in on Bob's chest. So Bob starts screaming, "Ah!" And he grabs the snake and he throws it up in the air. But when he does, it hits the roof of the car and it just falls back on him. And because he's sweating, it sticks to him. He can't hardly pull it off of him, right? So he's screaming, and he's just going nuts in the back seat. And then finally he starts kicking the back seat of this girl's of her car. And he walks himself up her back seat of her car, and his feet are on top of the roof of the car now. And now the snake is in his face. I mean, he throws it down, and once it goes out on the ground, Rob grabs it and throws it back in on him. And this went on for about 2 minutes, and then he kicks the front seat of her car. He breaks the bolts that connect it to the floor of her car. So he destroys her car because of this plastic snake. And Rob said the girl couldn't hardly drive. He had to drive the rest of the way to the airport. Bob had to put his feet on the back of her seat to keep it in the right position so that Rob could drive it till they got So he just, he was great. I had another one for him one time. I gave him a birthday present one year, and I found this real nice box. It was like a shoe box, and I wrap it all up. But underneath the lid of the box, I had bought one of those snakes about the same size, and I had stapled it to the box top so that when he removed the box to see what was in it, the snake's going to be right there. And I made the mistake. He's visiting me at my house, and he's sitting on my couch, and there's a coffee table right in front of him. And I say, "Bob, I got you a birthday present, man," and I set the box down. "Oh, Ron, he is, that's real nice of you, Ron." I said, "Yeah, open it up, man." "Oh, no, wait." I said, No, go ahead and open it up. So he finally opens it up. And he pulls that box top off, and that snake is there. Oh, he throws the box up in the air. He kicked I had a glass coffee table. He kicked the glass out of my coffee table. Just destroyed my coffee table. Was running all over my living room. I'm like, "Bob, come on, Bob, stop. It's just a toy. It's just a toy." So,
Well, I can testify, ladies and gentlemen of the listening public, that Ron Fuller's stories are all true, but in this case, they're overly true because it was legendary all the way up into Knoxville to Smoky Mountain Wrestling that Bob Armstrong's reactions to snakes are what he believes are snakes. And I don't know why the boys always thought it was a good idea to get an ex-Marine, a bodybuilder with a bench press of hundreds of pounds and explosive striking power in an enclosed space and then convince them that they are being assaulted by their worst fear. Because one night, it's just a high school gym of the bathroom, right? The stalls, the old high school gym bathroom stall where you got the door and then you got the stall on either side of it, right? It doesn't go all the way up, doesn't go all the way down, but it's got the framework. And one night, Bullet Bob's in there, you know, taking a promoter and sitting on the toilet. And those stretchy, the tube exercising things that the boys used to have, where it's a stretch tube and it's a long rubber tube, and they'd stand on it and they'd do their arm flexes, right? And stretch this thing. It's a warm up thing. Well, somebody just grabs that thing and bundles it up and walks over to the side of the stall and throws it over the top and yells snake at the same time. And it looked like a cartoon. Both of the sides of the stall and the door blew out all at the same time, down to the ground. And there was Bob wrestling that goddamn that stretchy exercise.
It's not even a
Get it off of me. Get it off of me. It's like Bobby Eaton's sick stomach when you can dump Colonel Sanders chicken gravy out in front of him and tell him it's baby shit and he'll vomit, even though he knows what it is. It's amazing. But anyway, those kind of stories and more not only can be heard on the Studcast, but will be heard at the tribute to Bullet Bob Armstrong in Dothan on November 23rd. Brian, you've been quiet. You're a little sick boy over there. Tell the folks how they can listen and subscribe and do everything they need to do for Ron's Studcast.
You can find the Studcast each and every week wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. Of course, it is Ron Fuller talking about the history of Southern wrestling, the history of the Welch family in wrestling, and the history of Southeastern and Continental wrestling. And we even now have some classic audio that we're incorporating into the shows. We encourage you to check out Ron Fuller's Studcast each and every week. And also want to make mention of the Super Studcast, available for patrons of the Studcast for only $2.99 a month. You get in the door at patreon.com/Studcast. And actually, Jim, the latest edition of the Super Studcast, 90 minutes with Dr. Tom Pritchard. And this is some extraordinary stuff because we talk not just about Continental and Knoxville, but about his growing up in the Houston wrestling office. So if you're a wrestling historian, you're really going to love this episode.
And do you know how much money you normally would have to pay for 90 minutes with the doctor?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, it'd be expensive, wouldn't it?
So right there, 90 minutes with Dr. Tom Pritchard, and it's a negligible expense. And Ron, once again, it's a tribute to Bullet Bob Armstrong, Saturday night, November 23rd in Dothan, Alabama, at the crossings at Big Creek. It's south of Dothan, down there on Highway 231. Bob has just celebrated his 80th birthday, 60 years in professional wrestling. You're going to be there, Ron, along with Charlie Platt, of course, Road Dogg, Brian Armstrong, Bullet himself be the as usual, the star of the show, and the meet and greet, videos, discussions, jokes, laughs, promos from friends and stars, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a unique evening. Anybody in the old Southeastern area, from Pensacola and Mobile all the way down to the Panhandle, come on down and see Bullet Bob and all the crew in Dothan on the 23rd.
That's it. That's the deal. And we're even going to have a special guest. I think Fannie Mae Titweiler may show up there.
Is Fannie Mae still around?
Fannie Mae is still around, I think, man. So, I think that'll be a big boost for fans too. I don't think I've ever seen Fannie Mae. I had a T-shirt made of him when we were working, and we had the angle going, and he turned heel on me, and I started back working, and he was advertising this Fannie Mae Titweiler. Every week she's done something special for me, right? And so I went out to Pensacola Beach and got them to airbrush me a T-shirt of big fat Fannie Mae and flies around her face and all that. And I wore it into the ring. Hell, I didn't have it on 20 seconds. Bob saw it. He was like, oh, man, he had to tear it off. Oh, gosh, boy, you can't do that. It's like, so we may have Fannie Mae too in this thing. So it should be really good for fans.
You know, I heard they used to put Fannie Mae's picture in the prisons to cure the sex offenders, but I never got confirmation on that. So maybe we'll find. That's one of the questions we can ask Bullet Bob on November 23rd. But anyway, all right. Thank you, Ron. We appreciate you stopping by. I feel like Tennessee Ernie Ford now running his old variety show. We appreciate you stopping by, neighbor Ron. And now here's Cousin Arthur with the news. And anyway, We'll talk to you soon, and everybody will be listening to the Studcast.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Well, there you hear another great story time with the Stud and another example of a wrestler being a little scared by something and other wrestlers finding out and exploiting it because he didn't no-sell it. The Bullet let everyone know he was scared of snakes, and everyone had to shove it in his face, seemingly forever.
It was, like I said, it was the same thing with Bobby eating with the weak stomach. People would go up and show him a booger and he'd, vomit all over everything. But there was, it reminded me when we were talking to Ron about, do you know what one of the fines was? It was a $50 fine in Mid-South Wrestling, not just dressing improperly, not just being late to a show, not just the other no showing, all the other things. It was a $50 fine, at least for a period of time in Mid-South Wrestling under the directive of Bill Watts himself to goose Grizzly Smith.
Were that many people goosing him that it required a fine? Really?
Yes. No, because here's the thing. It was the most entertaining goose. Like, some people are scared of things or, but they don't put it over like Bullet did with the snakes. It was just a thing. And some people are jumpy and goosey, right? But this was world-class Broadway, style goosiness. Grizzly Smith was 6'10", and he was easily 350 to 370 at the point of time he was the road agent in Mid-South, right? He's massive, and his hands are like catcher's mitts. But if you goosed him, and not even a hard, like, stiff thumb and just ram it up his ass as hard as you could, but just a little, as Adrian Street used to say, just a little touch up the ass, right? Just a tickle up in between the butt cheeks, just, he would fucking go ballistic. He would leap and he would swing. So it was so funny to see this fucking giant human being jump up on tippy toes and throw his arms in the air, that guys would do it. And, you had the Ted DiBiase's and the Ernie Ladds and the fucking, the whole Mid-South crew, right? The Samoans, everybody's goose and grizz. Well, finally one day, and this is before we got there, but the story was still fresh in everybody's mind. This is when it was made a fine. He's standing there, Grizzly is talking to Bill Watts one day at TV. And one of the guys just walks past him and just touched him up the ass real lightly. And he took one of those big hands and he swung it instantly without thinking and slapped Bill Watts right in the side of the fucking head like to knock him out. God damn it, Grizz. So he made it a fine, right? Well, then that lasted for a while, but it was so fucking entertaining. If Watts wasn't around or if there was nobody in front of him, then they started mediating it somewhat. Well, if nobody's in front of him, you can goose him. It's not a fine, right? So then one night, I got the perfect opportunity. And I was not a person who went around in Mid-South Wrestling trying to, rib a bunch of people and call attention to myself. I'm very young. I'm the new guy. I'm trying to stay out of trouble, but it was too good to resist. We're in Lafayette, Louisiana. And the ring in Lafayette is set at the Memorial Auditorium there is set up on the stage. And then behind the ring is the curtains that close across the stage. So you can imagine you're sitting in this auditorium. You're looking at a wrestling ring on a stage with a curtain all the way behind it. And there's only ringside on a couple of sides of the ring, because in the back is just the curtain and nothing. And I see Grizzly Smith peeking through the curtain, right where it splits. He's just peeking. He's watching because the ring is 10 feet away. He's just watching the match. So as I walked by, I gave him the little touch up the ass, right as I walked by, where maybe I could even say, well, I didn't mean to, to see what would happen. All of a sudden, the people are sitting there watching that fucking wrestling match, and this giant 6'10", 375-pound man comes screaming bust out the curtain in the middle of the split, wah, like that, and just announces his presence on stage like a fucking opera singer, wah, and then looked and saw what he'd done and turned around and went straight back through the curtain with no explanation. I've often wondered what it was like to be sitting in that crowd at that point. If anybody out there was there that night and saw Grizzly Smith dive through the curtain onto the stage, screaming.
Did you ever see anyone get hit with him flailing?
No, because it was still a fine if there was somebody in front of him. So you had to it was like billiards. You had to line your fucking shot up, see if anybody was in the line of fire. But anyway.
How was this discovered? When was the first person that did it? It was like, oh my God, we got to do this again.
Well, it just over the years, at some point or another, if you're in a locker room, you're going to get goosed. Somebody's going to come up behind you, except I'm jumpy in the ribs, right? That's why I've got that scar on my head from Christmas night where I was going down to get my juice and Mustafa grabbed me in the side to pick me up and I'm goofy. Maybe that too, but I'm goosey. And Riggy Morton came up from behind me one night at a fucking TV taping and grabbed me around the ribs from behind. I didn't even know he was there. And I turned around and shot my left arm out, punched him right in the fucking eye. And he's like, well, goddamn. So there's a certain, you got to line this thing up with certain people so that there's nobody in front of them.
Well, let me ask you this then. What's the biggest rib or the worst rib you saw where the guy no-sold it?
Well, sometimes you'll hit somebody that's not goosey and they'll just turn around and smile at you and it just kills the whole thing.
I guess so. I guess it would.
Yeah. Then you've just got your thumb in a guy's ass. There's really no coming back from that at that point, Anyway, speaking of, I do have an email. I've got this. I need to read this. We should have saved this for the AEW review, but nevertheless, I'm going to get it out of the way. Funny thing, you mentioned the guardrail last week. You were right. This is Jonah writing. You were right about AEW wrestlers hitting the guardrails too hard. I was there in Charlotte, 4th row from the front on the hard camera side. During the Pac match, one of the wrestlers threw the other into the guardrail, and some kid in the first row got his elbow skinned because he was leaning on it. The elbow wasn't horrible, but an injury is still an injury. After the match, during the commercial break, Justin Roberts came up to console the little guy to no avail. Justin Roberts looks like he ought to be registered somewhere or be around children.
Ooh.
No, he's so happy. You see a fucking guy dressed up like that with that big smile coming across his face coming toward your kids, run. Anyway, even after the show, the Elite came out and made sure to hook him up with merchandise while they were thanking the crowd. My question to you, how would you respond to a fan getting injured? Jonah from Augusta, Georgia. P.S. I drove almost 3 hours to Dynamite, and all I could think about while watching the show is, God damn it, Corny's right about everything, isn't he? Thank you, Jonah.
We're hearing that a lot from people, on Twitter especially.
How would I have handled an injury like that? I would have fired the fucking guy that caused it. Because most of the time, it got to be because in Louisville and OVW in Kentucky, if you fight on the guardrail or into the crowd, not only are the match immediately stopped and the wrestlers are immediately fined by the state athletic commission, but also your promoter's license gets pulled. Because of the hardcore bullshit, because these indie guys that think they can do the same thing in rec centers with a $15 budget as they can do in a fucking NBA arena when the show's costing $500,000 because they don't get it. I had to have the talk with everybody in Ring of Honor when Sinclair Broadcasting bought the company. Said this is not the beloved ticket broker Kerry Silken running things anymore, where the people understand and it's an honor and a privilege to be injured by you. And you can give them a free T-shirt and a ticket to next week's matches and they'll be fine because now they know a billionaire corporation is running this thing. So they're going to sue if you get a stain on their fucking pants. And it's the same thing. Tony Khan, as we all know, has been well documented, is a billionaire. All these guys going upside down into these railings, knocking the railings over, getting thrown over the railings into the clear area that they've scoped out before the fucking matches that they can take their bump in. crowds are moving parts and moving objects, and the guy that wasn't there before they opened the fucking doors might wander into the fucking picture at the worst moment. So I had to explain to them in Ring of Honor. It was noted on the wall in OVW because it was a state law. Don't get on the rail. Don't go over the rail. In Smoky Mountain Wrestling, we got a couple of issues with guys going too close to the rail that we did have and people getting bumped. And we generally did the same thing. Free tickets and the baby faces make nice to them. But you can also get sued if somebody gets their teeth knocked out. Some guy's flying boot. So that's just another thing I was right about. And you've got to stay here. This is a segue for you. You got to stay in good shape. If you're going to have a match without going out into the crowd and do the garbage wrestler, the easy way out, you got to stay in good shape. And I know that you've been working on that, Brian, even though you're sick now, not at death's door. Apparently this new fucking conditioning program is really working for you.
Well, the breathing techniques have certainly helped me with my cough and everything else that's happening.
You can't breathe. How are you doing the breathing techniques when you can't breathe?
Well, I hadn't thought of that before we started this spot, but yes, it's a wonderful product.
It's not a product. It's a way of life. It's XPT breathing app. It's a total system is what it is. It's inspired by the training techniques and lifestyle habits of big wave surfer Laird Hamilton and former pro athlete Gabrielle Reese. And if Laird and Gabrielle are vouching for this shit, I would think that everybody else could too, because whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior or somebody looking to get back into the game of life, find a program that pushes you to grow physically and mentally. You have found the right solution, Brian. You were telling me this a few weeks ago, and you were going to keep me posted on how it's working for you.
So far, it's been working really well. It's actually really cool. It's a free app, which is a nice thing because every member of the cult can go there and check it out. And of course, we'll tell you a little bit more about how to do that in a second. But it's a great way to do something without having to join a gym or without having to go get a personal trainer, without having to pay a personal trainer. They charge a lot of money. Do you know how much they charge, Jim?
I've never checked into a personal trainer. I know some people may find this astonishing, but I assume it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money by the hour. But this is a way to get around that and also get yourself in shape and improve your breathing while you're at it as well.
Well, there you go. You can go to xptlife.com/JCE to download the app today. That's xptlife.com/JCE, and you get the app for free. And maybe it'll tell you a little bit more about this thing because Brian really didn't, and I don't understand it. So, but it's good. It's good for you. They've got a move program, customizable training programs, and daily workouts with versatility and resilience where you can challenge yourself mentally as well as physically. And if it's one thing I like, it's to be challenged mentally and physically. xptlife.com/JCE. That's what I said.
That's what you said.
What about this? Yeah, that's what I said. That used to be the bunny bread tagline. That's what I said, bunny bread.
I don't know bunny bread.
You didn't have bunny bread when you were a kid?
No.
For heaven's sake, the delicious white bread that you would make your bologna sandwiches on. Didn't you have bologna sandwiches when you was a kid?
We had Wonder Bread.
Oh, bunny's even softer than Wonder.
Get out of here. How could it be
What's softer than a bunny?
Wonder.
You grab you a good handful of a bunny's ass. That's the softest thing you're ever going to feel.
We've talked about now multiple species of grabbing him by the ass today here on the show.
Well, it's an ass grabbing kind of show. Speaking of grabbing ass, here's a guy that couldn't grab his ass with both hands. Apparently, this fucking Jordan Myles. What's happened with him now?
This is so weird.
Well, at first, it's ACH was his previous name, which I guess now he's announced he's going back to because Jordan Myles was his slave name. I'm not making this up, folks. This is what he is saying to people on the internet. Apparently, I did not watch the statement he released on video, but apparently some people were likening it to other people that need help or intervention in their personal lives.
You know, and first of all, in terms of the slave name, I could be wrong, but I believe he came up with that name. He's the one who picked the name Jordan Myles. So I don't know what that says, but He released this
Well,
video?
he was apparently he was ordered to pick a name, which that's what they do. They order you pick a new name because they won't let you have your name for some reason. But he picked the name, but that's his slave name now. He's going back to ACH.
He released this video where he says that he has quit WWE. I don't know if it's as simple as you could just announce, I quit, if you're under contract.
I have a feeling if it was that easy, other people would have done it.
I think a lot of people would be doing it, actually. But he announced he quit. He's going back to ACH. Don't ever call him Jordan Myles again. I guess the big question is, Jim, with the way this all went down and how much attention it got, would you hire him if you were a wrestling promoter?
Why would you? Because it wasn't a lot of people have gotten mad about the WWE but then he throws in and Ring of Honor was the same way and that fucking Jay Lethal and everybody else is the same. Plus the whole T-shirt reaction. I mean, they have literally, the WWE has in the past caused some talents significant aggravation, professional injury, personal strife, whatever. They put out a fucking bad T-shirt of this guy, and he fucking flips his fucking shit and goes off on everybody.
And, they were going to go all the way with him in NXT. I heard that Triple H was a really big fan of his and was going to really give him a super push, and he had already started it, and then he just disappeared off TV right around the time, obviously, all this sprung up. But that's the big question. If after all this, how does another promoter just hire them? You have to be worried about him going off again about something at some point.
But never say never, because look who else came back to wrestling this week.
That's right. CM Punk returned, although I guess officially he's under contract to Fox, not WWE, even though he's on the Fox WWE. I think the show's called Backstage. I haven't seen it.
Well, and here's somebody on Twitter was like, well, see now, the difference in CM Punk and Jericho. Jericho has reinvented himself and is the champion of a hot new promotion, whereas Punk is gone back to the WWE and as, when they're at their worst state ever. As long as they got their TV money, they ain't in their worst state ever. Their worst state ever was 1995, and that was a pretty bad state.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have knocked that state out of the union.
That's the problem right now. Everyone doesn't like it, but they're making more money than they've ever made before.
Well, but besides that, analyze this fucking dipshit statement that somehow I tweeted back. I said, okay, Jericho is making 7 figures to work part-time for a billionaire, but he has to take bumps and do on-the-job training with the other green talent. CM Punk is probably making 6 figures, employed by a national television network to talk about something he used to do on a part-time basis. I think it's a draw at best. Nobody's suffering here. CM Punk didn't crawl back to the WWE with his tail between his legs. The Fox network has hired him to be a ratings draw and expert commentator on their new fucking television program. And even not regularly. He said, I'll be back. I'll be here from time to time. So he's getting, can you envision a scenario where he's not getting 6 figures to do whatever he's doing?
Oh, no way. No way.
Okay.
No way.
So he's getting 6 figures to pop in every once in a while and talk to people. And Jericho's making 7 figures to pop in every once in a while and lead some green fucks through a fucking match. I don't see anybody's of the two of them, anybody's significantly fucking suffering there. Do you?
No, I think they're both winners in that case. But let me ask you, what's the deal with the comparison? Is there a Jericho CM Punk thing that we're comparing one versus the other?
Well, apparently the Twitterer was like, well, remember there was heat between Jericho and CM Punk or something, which I don't know. But he was like, so now Jericho's blooming and look at CM Punk. Yeah, look at CM Punk. He's doing the same thing. He's getting a lot of fucking money to do very little. Although Jericho's doing more, but he's getting more money. What the fuck?
By the way, if CM Punk wanted to come back to wrestling, he could do it anytime and he'd get a 7-figure contract. I think he's pretty happy with what he's doing.
Yes. Yes, he would. And yes, he could. Anyway, well, I guess actually, are you doing anything this week? You're sick. Are you taking a week off or are you still doing 18 shows?
I have not taken a day off yet.
Oh, for heaven's
I haven't taken a day off in quite a while, but another packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. A few notes. Want to make mention of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam and Sean Goodwin. This week on the show, the boys review an issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated from February 1982. This is a really fun look at an old magazine. Check it out today at McAdamPod.com or wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. Also want to make mention of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now. This week, we review a show from October 1st, 1989 with original audio. And of course, it's a big show. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat comes on to talk about where he currently is and what his future plans are. And he starts teasing a return to the WWF. This is just months after the contract negotiations fall apart between Bonnie Steamboat and Jim Herd. And also,
wouldn't you like to have been a fly on the wall when Bonnie sat down with Jim? When Bonnie met Jimmy?
I laughed because in this interview, Ricky goes, he's talking about stuff, and then he stops John as John's wrapping up. He goes, John, my wife brought up an interesting issue. The one title I haven't held is Hulk Hogan's. And I'm thinking, yeah, of course she brought up that issue. But also on this show, you got to hear it for the Power Twins. They are obnoxious. They are controversial. And they almost get John kicked off the air. They literally insult and fight with every single listener that calls up to the show. And then they just start insulting various people, from the wives of Dave Winfield to various wrestlers to Johnny Rods. You got to hear this. It's an explosive episode of Pro Wrestling Spotlight, available at pwspod.com or available wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership. I didn't know if I was going to do it, but I
didn't think you'd do it. I wasn't ready for it.
I'm going to be feeling it for the next hour, but I did it. Episode 100. I swear it's getting very close to landing.
I swear I know it will. I know it will. I swear it will. It's going to land anytime, the Mothership.
I have been editing with a fever for the last couple of days. Expect the Mothership
you've been feverishly editing.
Both.
Yeah.
But yes, editing with a fever, recording now with a fever. But the show is almost done. And I have to say, it may be the single greatest episode of any wrestling podcast that's ever been produced.
Brian.
Check out more information today. Go through the archive, 605pod.com. It's available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. And also want to make mention for everyone who has bought t-shirts, stickers, or magnets in the last several weeks, all orders, we will be caught up by this weekend, by this Saturday. All orders will go out. So if you're waiting on something.
So wait a minute. Now I'm caught up and you're behind.
I am behind. The sickness. I've got the sickness. That's what Roddy Piper used to call everything in the industry. The sickness. But no, since I've been sick, I've kind of been a little extra behind with that. But this Saturday, as of this Saturday, we'll be completely caught up, unless a ton of orders come in the next day or so. But I'm hoping that won't happen.
Fever in the morning and fever all through the night. You give me fever.
Have you ever done karaoke?
No.
Would you ever do karaoke?
I don't know why I would do something like that.
If you were going to do it, what would you sing, or what genre of music would you sing?
What genre of music? It would have to be the spoken word genre, so that I wouldn't say. No, actually, I did a group karaoke thing with the Ring of Honor guys in Chicago one night, because I can't remember who it was, but they were butchering the words.
Was it the Young Bucks?
No, it wasn't. It was not the Young Bucks, but they were. It was Matchbox 20 is what they were doing, and they were butchering it.
Whose decision was that?
I don't know. I came in on it in the middle.
Jeez, spoken word. You gonna do some Lou Reed?
Hey, you never know.
By the end, Lou Reed just
Walk on the Wild Side.
He just
stopped singing at all. Yeah,
like all of his early hits that are amazing, Sweet Jane, all the Velvet Underground stuff. You would hear him do it live. It's like not only would he just not sing and he would just say it, but he would also do it at points where you're not supposed to say it in the song. He just fucked up all of his songs. He didn't give a shit.
Well, there, if I've ever heard one, is a fucking segue. He just fucked up his show because he didn't give a shit. Well, let's talk about Full Gear. I want to preface this by saying, and then we'll be done with this. I want to preface this by saying that it's stupid to think that I would have been rooting against a billionaire starting a wrestling company with the connections to get it on TNT, whether it was to be paid $1 billion for it or not, just to get on TNT, just to get wrestling back on the Turner networks, national television, real fucking budgets to do things, budget to pay wrestlers. Why would I dislike that from the start? I disliked it soon after the start because I realized, as I've mentioned before, with who he was going to be in business with, that this was not going to be a serious effort, nor was it going to be any way to, it wasn't going to be a template for what could be done, because they were going to botch it up because they couldn't play it fucking straight and they couldn't recognize talent because they thought they had the talent in their group. That's what I thought. And the prophecy is quickly coming true. And yes, I enjoy knocking a few of these people like Jazz Hands and Jelly and all the rest of them because they're fucking idiots and they're embarrassing. But I don't enjoy knocking the whole concept of a wrestling promotion to challenge Vince McMahon, which makes it all the more grumpy for me when they are botching their efforts and botching their attempt. And what other national television network is going to give wrestling a chance after this when this swirls down the porcelain throne? It's going to be that much harder to get a good product on the air, and then Vince will have even more of a monopoly. So I didn't want to be right about this whole thing. It just so happens I am again. But for the people who think I wanted to be right from the start, no. I would rather there be a big budget major league pro wrestling promotion alternative to Vince McMahon. It's just that apparently the people with the money don't know how, and the people that know how don't have the money. And some people along the way are insidious manipulators and connivers that separate some people from their money without imparting the know-how. I sat down to watch the pay-per-view straight through the way that God and nature would intend it, right?
Did you watch it live?
I watched it. I didn't watch it live because it was a busy day on Saturday, so I watched it all the way through on Sunday before I could have people poison my mind on it. But I did. We'll get to it. I watched it almost all the way through. And this, once again, it was a long fucking thing. God damn, it was so long. But I have my contemporaneous notes, and I'm going to go off on some tangents. The opening packages, they've got a great voiceover guy. He could actually say the Young Bucks are the best tag team in the world, and you don't hear any hint of wink, wink, or chuckle in his voice. So, and he has the great sports voiceover voice. They're spending money. They're getting professional people, except to put in the ring.
Did you see the pre-show? Because they had all those video packages that I thought were phenomenal. All I thought when I watched that was, why aren't they putting some of this on the show? This did a better job of making me care about the matches I normally wouldn't care about than anything they've had on Dynamite.
No, I watched what they sold to me as a pay-per-view. I tuned in when the fireworks went off and they said, welcome to the show. So I don't know what to tell you.
The pre-show, they had video packages, Jim, that were like equivalent of HBO boxing when they had that 24/7 show or stuff that UFC has done. Really good shit that almost made you...
Why wasn't any of this stuff on the pay-per-view instead of these 30-minute long fucking matches?
Why wasn't any of it on TV to build up to the pay-per-view? That was the thing I couldn't get over, because it did a better job of building up the pay-per-view than anything that's been on Dynamite. Anything. Other than the Cody and Jericho segments.
Well, there you go. We should have done our research. The Baltimore Arena, now the Royal Farms Arena, but the old Civic Center, I've been there many times. There was a lot more people in it when I was there. The first thing I wrote, why is Justin Roberts so goddamn cheerful? It's just he's so happy to be there.
I put on Twitter, why don't they hire Bruce Buffer? They've got a billionaire's budget. Hire the best guy.
There you go. And not Michael Buffer like the last time wrestling was on Turner Networks. The black sheep of the Buffer family. Hire Bruce, the good one that gives a shit, does a good job.
I'm sure he's a nice guy. Justin Roberts is just not good as a ring announcer.
Well, it just, once again, so much cheerfulness. So much cheerfulness. Anyway, the Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz with the Rock and Roll Express at ringside. And nobody expects me to like this fucking match, and I didn't expect to like it. There were times that they broke down and actually had a tag match where they'd get some heat on one guy, but they're also the same type of tag match that they always do in a lot of it, which was They just do whatever the fuck they want. I like that they disallowed a tag to the boot early in the match. That was probably for me. But of course, then the fans booed the referee not allowing an illegal tag. And for the heels, because it was the heels that did the illegal tag. And the referee said, no, you got, and the fans booed the referee enforcing the rules to the heel team. They have so little logic or psychology in this promotion. I'm not talking about the individual matches. I'm talking about the promotion, that not only can you not tell who the babyface and who the heels are, but the people cheer both and boo when the heels are taken to task for their cheating. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. After the referee got booed for not allowing the heels to cheat, then the heels got a cool double hold on both the baby faces and the people cheered it. Here's what I see when I see these two guys wrestling, or two teams wrestling. I see two mid-card tag teams. I don't see the Revival. I don't see Mark and Jay Briscoe. I don't see Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. I see two middle-card tag teams at this point, and Proud and Powerful have some potential. The Young Bucks look like shit when they're fighting or punching. It's ridiculous. They have their video game match, and if it was on in the middle of the card, then it might be okay. But to actively try to tell people that the people who are not already in this fucking bubble, that this is the greatest tag team in the world when they're looking at what they're looking at on television is ridiculous. And if these are the best two teams in the company, they're in serious fucking trouble. Anyway, then Matt Jackson Northern Lights suplexed both heels at the same time. They were all four endlessly with no tags. The Young Bucks did a bunch of contrived shit, working around Nick's bad knee that he was allegedly had, that he was selling. Then at one point it all fell apart and stalled. Then they went into the finish, and Matt charged Santana in the corner so that Santana could move and Matt could go through the buckle and hit the post, but Santana didn't move and Matt went past him and hit the post. Nobody noticed that one, I bet. The camera cut away quickly. And then Proud and Powerful hit their finish 1, 2, 3. The heels won without cheating. And it went for 20 fucking minutes. This match went 20 minutes. Then they continued the heat. Here comes Sammy Guevara with his fucking camera phone that I thought was, cool on TV. But now what the fuck? It's slow. It's plodding. Then the Rock and Roll gets up. And then Ricky Morton gets the two biggest pops of the fucking night for doing the fucking assisted Canadian Destroyer and then the dive out onto the heels. And did you hear a pop that big for anything else in that match?
Oh, no, it was clearly the biggest pop.
And just because, yes, they're popping because everybody knows Ricky Morton's 63 years old, at least. And here he is doing these things. And they don't understand that the lesson to be taken away from that is when your expectations are lower and you overperform, people blow their minds. But when they expect everything to look like a car wreck to begin with, and then that's what it does, and they sit there and go, yeah. Build something. They basically had a 20-minute fucking match to build up for Ricky Morton doing two spots, and he stole the show. And good for him, and bless him. But there's the two greatest tag teams in wrestling right there. Apparently, because they said the Young Bucks were, and then Proud and Powerful. A lot of PPs. Piss poor pre-planning leads to piss poor performance. Anyway, they beat them. So these are the two best teams in the wrestling business. And people are sitting there and watching television going, what the fuck? Actually, no, there weren't. Because they charged $50 for this fucking thing. $50 for this pay-per-view when you can pay $9.95 a month and get everything that's ever been put on tape and all the biggest stars in the business and the biggest super shows. And they charge $50 for this, which we'll get into shortly. What'd you think of that match?
Well, let me start by saying, because I watched that pre-show and those packages, and there was a Britt Baker match on the pre-show too, but I won't talk about that because you didn't see it. I went into this pretty optimistic. I said, let me enjoy this. And I have to admit, I enjoyed it more than most Young Bucks matches. I thought it was good.
They did less. They did do less.
It went too long for me, but, I like the little things like which one's the fucking one losing his hair? Matt?
Well, Matt's the pie-faced one
Nick.
with the darker hair.
So Nick,
yeah.
I thought, I was like, oh, wow, they're selling a fucking injury. They're selling the knee. And then, of course, he starts doing super kicks with the same leg.
Well, yeah, because that was only in the middle part of the match when he wanted you to know that he was selling the knee. And then he instantly quit selling the knee when they have to do all their shit.
Yeah, so, that I wasn't crazy about, but I thought, by and large, it was a really good match. I enjoyed it more than I have their other matches. They started the show with it, but let me ask you a question. If everyone knows the Young Bucks are executive vice presidents. Everyone knows that it was the success of the Young Bucks on the independent scene, which was kind of the genesis for all this. Do you think they should be losing as much as they've been losing? Personal feelings about them aside, the fact that they are there and it's AEW, should they be losing as much as they're losing?
Well, I don't know what they're I don't know who they're trying to get over here. Because I can see that, okay, if they're going in thinking that the Young Bucks and Kenny Olivier are already so over that they can just do jobs to everybody else and get them over, then I can see why they're doing what they're doing. They're just crazy that they think the Young Bucks and Kenny Olivier are that fucking over. But otherwise, I don't understand it because they're trying to not win to prove that they're not going to push themselves. But then since they're supposed to be the big stars of the thing, the big stars are losing. I don't fucking get it. I don't get it. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know who the heels are. I don't know who the baby faces are. I don't know who the stars are supposed to be. Because everybody goes competitively with everybody for 20 fucking minutes. But no, this I'm not shitting all over the match as the worst Young Bucks match ever. I'm just saying it's the same thing they usually do, and I don't fucking get it or understand it. And also visually, I said for anybody watching television going, these two kids are the fucking greatest tag team in the world. The only people that paid $50 for this are probably you and me, and everybody else is convinced they are the best tag team in the world. They're that fucking gone. That's the only people that paid $50 for this.
I just saw a thing with them the other day, one of their little skits. And if you think their wrestling is offensive, you should see their comedy. It's even more offensive.
I've tried to watch a couple, and I can't do that to myself.
That blonde one, he kind of has that like Kardashian whine, like next time you hear him talk, just like it's just this like whine, this Southern California pampered whine. But anyway,
the next match I was looking forward to, Pac versus Page. I like both these guys. I think they're great athletes. Within seconds of the match starting, they were on the floor and using the barricades. In the first match, at least two guys got tossed over the barricade into the fucking crowd. Now they're constant railing shots, boom, 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 knocking them into the people. And both guys did decent shit, and they looked good. But now the fans are kind of sitting there because these people came to see video game, quote-unquote, wrestling. And these guys are trying to have a match after they've jump-started and gone 100 miles an hour at the beginning, rattling each other around the rails and everything. And then they try to get in the ring. I don't know. They did shit to each other. And then Page hit his finish. And again, he did the moonsault off the top. Again, in every single match, moonsault off the top to the floor, lands on his feet. People cheer it. Every match I've seen him in, he has done that. Every match I've seen him in, he's hit multiple of the buckshot lariats, whether it's the finish or not. I'm starting to, why is nobody producing young Adam Page? If he don't know how to get over, why can't they book him to get over? Why can't they produce him to get over? And why is somebody else not telling him all these things? These are questions I have with no answers. You've been on the fence about the cowboy.
I have.
The hangman doing cowboy shit. This didn't knock you off the fence, did it?
No, it's not that I've seen Page versus Pac 100 times, but it feels like I have. Every match goes so long. On a positive side, focus on a positive, I think Pac is a fantastic professional wrestler. His facials, his movements, he can wrestle and do high spots. I really like him. I see the talent and the potential in Adam Page. I just don't, like you said, maybe it's as simple as he's not being produced yet. He's too young to have full control over everything he's doing, but it's supposed to be the wrestlers have autonomy there or whatever the fuck it is.
That may be the problem. That's maybe why he's doing his best move in every match, whether he wins or loses or comes out even or whatever, or just... That is not a move. It's not like a goddamn vertical suplex. You shouldn't be able to hit that in every match. You shouldn't be able to hit it every time you want to perfectly. It should be a high risk. There's absolutely no risk. He never misses. Because he does it in every match. I've seen it. I agree with you about Pac. He's fucking great. He looks like a badass. It's just something going on here. Next match, Shawn Spears and Jelly Nutella. And they're really trying with this Shawn Spears entrance. And then he goes out there and he has just fucking mush face. There's no... Tully has better facials. Well, obviously he would. But, I mean, this is on pay-per-view. Shawn Spears versus Jelly Nutella is on pay-per-view, which shows you how thin the roster is. There's no reason that this rotten-looking fucking outlaw kid should be on pay-per-view. He tried a bunch of shit that he didn't know how to do, and it looked rotten.
Yeah.
They claim 13 years as a pro. So even though he looks like he's fucking 19 and a shaggy-haired fucking goof from the Jersey Shore, he is really in his early 30s and still lives at home with his mother. He's looking forward to changing that when the AEW money kicks in good. We know this much. But 13 years as a professional athlete, if I'm a fucking viewer at home and the announcer, even Jim Ross, who I believe, who has credibility with me, tells me that this little fucking clown has been a professional athlete for 13 years, then that's just an unnecessary reason to bury your announcers. Because fuck, look at him. And he makes goofy faces too. I think he's trying to idolize fucking Olivier. This went for fucking ever. Can you, I dare anybody out there listening to the sound of my voice, can you imagine Jelly Nutella ever having a match on a WWE owned or operated television program? Can you?
No.
So anyway, and then Shawn Spears can't even beat him by himself. Tully has to spike pile drive him on the floor, and then they pick him up and throw him in, and then Shawn Spears hits his finish. Flat, blah. Come on. And you know why you think you've seen Pac and fucking Page all those times? Because we see these same people every show they do because they have nobody else. Yeah. This is it, folks. They had better than a fucking year and a billionaire backer to go around and come up with a fucking roster. And this is what they have given us because these are the personal friends of the people that are bilking the billionaire.
Easily the worst match on the show. Spears never had a chance because he's working with that dumpy pant load who just can't work. I mean, you watch him, he's sloppy in the ring. Doesn't seem like he has any idea how to work. Just garbage. I mean, this was
physically
awful.
Looks like shit.
Yeah.
And everybody, once again, all these fucking cosplay wrestling fans are like, well, Cornette, he wants all these steroid guys. Oh, yeah, I've always been pushing the big steroid freaks all my life. No, just people that look like a fucking athlete, look like a trained professional. And you, sir, Mr. Nutella, if that is indeed your real name, are not one. I'm going to let you review the next match, which was Private Party versus the Lucha Brothers versus SCU. And the reason why is because I fast-forwarded the fucking thing.
Well, unfortunately, I went down to have dinner during that match. Before I even saw Private Party, I just said, I've seen enough. And I said, this will be my bathroom break / dinner break for the night. So I did not watch that match.
Well, I would have watched a tag match with either of these three teams, but I wasn't going to watch another fucking three-way for no reason. And I knew what they were going to do. The Private Party's going to do every move known to man. The Lucha Brothers are going to do whatever the fuck they come up with on the sperm of the moment in the middle of the ring, because it doesn't look like any of that stuff's even been worked out ahead of time. And SCU is going to try to keep it together for the American audience. And they're still going to do a bunch of shit, and there's going to be no tag team rules and etc. And SCU did indeed beat Private Party after foiling their finish. And then they did an angle there where Chris Daniels came out under a mask as another Lucha brother, but then fucking whatever the fuck. But here's again a three-way. They've had constant three-ways. It's the worst goddamn idea that I've ever had. Here's another thing's come back to bite me in the ass. I now hate the fucking three-ways where I don't even want to watch them. It's my fucking fault. I did it. Heyman stole it from me, and then JR stole it from me. And then everybody else, and now you can't have a goddamn show without a three-way for no reason. And I didn't even come up with it, although I did at the time. I didn't know there was a three-way in Texas, they found out in 1967, between the three top guys that were going after the fucking belt. I can't remember who it was now. But the only way these things work is if you have two heels and one baby face, that's the only way it works, but the heels have to have heat amongst each other. It can't just be two heels that are going to work together, because then it's bullshit for the babyface. It's obviously not fair from the start. If you have two baby faces and one heel, then that's even stupider, because then your heel is outnumbered and your baby faces have to fight each other. The only way it works is if you have a strong baby face, a strong heel, and another heel that's been your strong heel, but is maybe in the process of switching baby face and has heat with goddamn the other heel. That's why we did it with the Dirty White Boy, Tracy Smothers, and Brian Lee. Christmas of 93, Christmas Chaos. Of course, Happy Heyman stole it, and they did the three-way dance. I had triple threat matches, because that sounds dangerous. They had a three-way dance. Sounded like a goddamn quilting bee. A little pussy-ish fucking get-together. Three-way dance. Oh, we're going to dance. And they did that in what? Was it Valentine's Day of 94 with Funk and Shane Douglas and Sabu?
February 94, yeah.
Okay, and then shortly the next year, JR called me because he started doing my TV right after Christmas Chaos that in 94. And he had seen, because we only did the one triple threat, because you couldn't have them more than every few years, or it was stupid, because that situation only comes up every so often. So he called me one day from Stamford. And he said, that three-way match thing you had, the triple threat match, what were the rules? And I explained it to him and why we did it and how we did it. That's when they started doing them for the WWF title with Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker versus fucking Mankind or whatever the fuck, right? The three-way title matches. But once again, it also doesn't work unless it's an elimination match. Because then the three-way, these three guys are in a dead heat. One is champion. The other two are top contenders. We need to determine who the man is around here. All three of them are going to go in a match, every man for himself. The last unbeaten man declares his dominance and is the champion. It's the only way it works. They didn't want top guys doing a job in the WWF, so they changed it to first pinfall, which didn't make any goddamn sense, because then you could pin a guy and win a title without beating the champion, which then they realized and made a whole fucking issue out of that. But that never made sense either. And the match is not over when one guy gets beat. That's just fucking stupid. The whole idea of it is to have a battle of attrition where the toughest man survives. So after it's been done and redone, and then the rules prostituted, and then all of a sudden it becomes a mid-card thing, and then all of a sudden, well, let's put 5 of the fucking little lightweight guys in there, and they can just fly around and have a goofy match. Doesn't make any sense, and every man for himself, and there's no babyface and heels. And it's the same thing as everything else in wrestling. It's been done, overdone, redone, rules changed, prostituted, homogenized, pasteurized, and sanitized, until now they have multiple man matches on every card, and it looks fucking stupid, and it is stupid, and nobody gets over. Just my opinion. What the fuck? But you took a dinner break at a poor time, Brian, because you know why.
I don't.
Because of what the next match was. That was your dinner break, or should have been.
What was the next one? I don't even remember.
Emi Sakura versus Riho.
And boy, she's going all the way with this Freddie Mercury thing. I thought it was a one-time thing. Now I realize it's every time.
And do you see the people looking at this fucking fat, dumpy, middle-aged Margaret Cho looking fucking outlaw indie girl wrestler from Japan coming to the ring dressed like Freddie Mercury with a gimmick mic stand and a mustache? And the announcer's out, well, because she's such a fan of Freddie Mercury. What the fuck? So here she comes, and then comes Riho. And I wanted to save talking about this, because I've been waiting to talk about this all fucking. Here's another example of financial fiduciary irresponsibility. Kenny Olivier, who is apparently in charge of this goddamn rat fuck fiasco women's division, fucking actually tweeted out the statistics to get the match over and make it more important. That Emi Sakura and Riho have faced each other in singles matches 30-something times, 1-1-17 and 1-1-15, but they've faced each other in some type of match or another 268 times over the past 13 years. Because then they go back into, well, yes, because she was a pro when she was 9. And once again, JR Excalibur has no credibility, and he just drug things down again. Tony Schiavone was MIA doing the Bulldogs, Georgia Bulldogs or whatever, so JR had to be saying this and backing this shit up, which is ridiculous on so many levels. Number one, to say that this girl was a professional wrestler when she was 9 years old. Now we find out there is a promotion in Japan that apparently Emi Sakura is the trainer for, that regularly uses girls that are 10 or 11 or 12 years old, and not against each other, but just in with the regular adult women. And this is a thing in Japan. They do a lot of strange shit over there. And so Kenny Olivier is tweeting out this girl's record of 13 years as a pro, starting when she was 9. Let me ask you a question. What would it have been like? I know Ronda Rousey started competing in judo at an early age as an amateur against other girls of her age. What would it have been like when she stepped in the fucking octagon in the UFC for the first time if they had included her entire record, including judo matches when she was 11, as part of her MMA record? What would people have said?
They would have said it was ridiculous.
Because it's ridiculous. You fucking stupid fucking idiot. This guy has got me at this point. This guy's got me to where I can't even come up with colorful insults. My mind is blown. That this fucking dancing, prancing, jazz hands having, finger pointing, goddamn goofy face making fucking idiot not only goes out and shits the bed every time he gets in the ring, but also he is pushing this shit in this company. They are competing with a billionaire named Vince McMahon that gives people Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. And they are on pay-per-view giving them independent outlaw girl wrestling from Japan for 20 fucking minutes. And nobody gave a shit. It's no wonder that Olivier's into these girls, because they're goofy too. And guess what happened about halfway into this fucking match that I later found out went 20 minutes, plus intros, plus a package? I went to fucking sleep. As did, I'm sure, a lot of other people. And because I went to sleep, I woke up. Cody and Jericho was in the middle of the fucking match, because this is what they put on before their fucking world title match. So I had to rewind to go back to the start of Cody and Jericho, and I watched the first 5 or 10 minutes of that groggy because these goddamn Japanese play wrestling fucking girls had put me to sleep. So Olivier is fucking his fucking program up, and he's not even when he's not in the ring. They couldn't feature Britt Baker. They couldn't feature Awesome Kong. They couldn't feature Nyla Rose. They're going to put a girls match on, and they put on for 20-something minutes on pay-per-view Emi Sakura, Mercury, and Riho.
I got to stop you for a second. So you didn't see, now that I'm realizing it, the pre-show with Awesome Kong.
No, I saw. Here's the thing.
I got to tell you about this.
What?
So it's Britt Baker versus Bea Priestley. Is that her name?
Okay.
You know, I've expressed my issues with the AEW women's division enough. I'm not going to harp on it again, but they have their match and Britt Baker wins. And then Brandy Rhodes and Awesome Kong come out and go in the ring. And Awesome Kong takes out a blade, a knife. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And I guess her gimmick now is they go to this down Bea Priestley and they cut off a piece of her hair. But what you don't know she's going to do that. The first thing you see is just her pull out this knife. You're like, what the fuck? I've never seen this on wrestling before. And it was pretty goofy, I got to say. And one other thing, you're talking about commentators, you missed this. On the pre-show, they had Taz and Golden Boy, who you may remember from several pay-per-views back.
Yes, and I remember old Golden Boy.
I thought they were great. They brought energy, they brought excitement, and then they were gone for the main show.
Well, yeah, remember we said Golden Boy was good, and obviously Taz knows what he's doing. And then there's Excalibur. All right, anyway, so the point is, their competition is giving people Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and they've got Indie Outlaw Japanese Girls 25 minutes on pay-per-view you paid $50 for. So, yeah, somebody needs their fucking ass kicked. And then came Cody versus Jericho, and I rewound it and watched it from the beginning. I'm not going to go move for move. Everything anybody could have imagined I was going to say. Why don't they just charge us $50 to watch this match? Actually, I would have paid more than what I paid if I could have just watched this match and not had to watch the rest of the fucking show.
But you didn't have to watch the rest of the show. You didn't, and no one forces you to watch any of this.
Well, good, because apparently that's the only way they're going to be able to have viewership in the next several months is if they're forcing people, if they keep doing shit like this. One classic match. And I mean, everything fell in the right direction. Also, Fortunate Juice, because at first I was like, well, this is too convenient. Cody's going into business for himself. Then I saw that fucking hole in his head. I said, okay, that was Fortunate Juice. But it added to the fucking match. I figured they probably wouldn't be doing blood this early. Then later on in the next match, we'll get to that. But these two guys know how to work. They know what to do. They had the people. They had a great match. They had a great finish. And then they did a great angle afterwards. And guess what? MJF had fucking heat. With what we actually called last week, because it's the only thing that made sense, and it's just the first thing off the top of my head, but because it made sense, and it was a Cody match, they did it, because he only does things that make sense. and MJF is brilliant. And he got heat. The guy throws the beer on him, then throws the fucking can. You see security going over to grab the guy. Yeah. Imagine that the smartest group of wrestling fans on the fucking planet probably gathered in that one spot, and MJF got heat just because he's real. There's nothing else you can say about this. I can go through and say, well, everybody on the roster ought to have watched this match, but it wouldn't do them any good anyway. Because if they could figure out what to do, they wouldn't be able to do it. That's why Cody and Jericho are the only two doing it.
You know, I was wondering, it seemed to me like they took the fans a few minutes to get into the match. Do you think the judges at ringside threw people off because they were expecting a long match?
Well, it may have, but also as well, it took it took me a few minutes to wake up. What crowd-killing fucking performance just happened in the arena in front of those people where the only thing they could do was get up and go get a hot dog or piss to get away from it? 25 minutes of fucking outlaw Japanese women's wrestling. After they've seen all those moves on the undercard, then they've had to sit through that women's match. Now it's going to take them a couple minutes to warm them back up. And by the time, and once again, in a half an hour that flew by the time it was over with, the dead crowd that just saw the fucking fat, pudgy female Freddie Mercury was so mad they were dousing MJF with fucking beer and throwing shit at him. Imagine if they hadn't had to get him back. Poor MJF might have been assassinated. If they'd have been up from something that they saw earlier in the night that was any good, it'd have been easier.
Cody obviously busted open his eye, and I think he even broke a rib on that dive onto the ramp. What do you think about the ramp? Because that was something that was there in WCW when you were still there. What do you think in general about using a ramp like that?
Hated it. I always hated the ramp. When WCW started doing it, they started doing it to look big and grand on pay-per-view like the WWF. And I know the people in Maple Leaf Gardens from 50 years of history love their ramp. And that was necessary to get the guys to the ring and back, because you see the newspaper clippings back in the 40s at a hot finish, the guys used to have to hide under the ring in the riot. So they put the ramp up where they could elevate them. But if you're doing chase scenes outside, you can't go all the way around the ring. It was awkward for me as a manager because you can't get around the fucking ring. I don't like it. It attracts attention. It takes away. It's a big, giant thing. I don't like the ramp and never have. But in this case, the ramp was the least of their worries, except that it almost fucking caved Cody's face in.
You know, we talked about the weight belts a few weeks back. Both guys in this match were wearing the weight belts. Is that a back issue thing? Do they have back issues?
What not used to be, that was in a bunkhouse match, and you'd take the big, thick leather weight belt off and whip somebody with it. And then Dusty loved to use the weight belt in the bunkhouse matches. And I think Cody started doing that as a little homage to Dusty. And now maybe they're just doing it and they don't really know. Well, Cody knows, but some people are probably using weight belts and don't know where it started or why. Because you just asked. I don't fucking know.
Any problems? I mean, obviously the MJF turn has happened. Some people could say it happened too soon. I've seen that in various places. Some people thought it wasn't explained enough on TV in the weeks building up to it. Do you have any issues at all with the way the MJF turn transpired?
No, if that means that we'll get to hear him talk more and not have to act like a babyface when everybody... Here's the thing. He's such a great heel. Everybody knew eventually something was going to happen. And the people who are complaining, well, they did it too soon, knew it was going to happen. They just wanted to wait longer. But there's no sense in presenting MJF on national television in anything other than the best light and his best performance, and that is as a heel who's just fucked a top baby face and don't give a shit. So as quick as they got him there, I'm happy with it.
Now, you didn't see the promo. Did you watch Wednesday night? Did you see the promo with him?
I have not. Well, that's another thing. We're going to talk about the Wednesday night shows on the drive-thru because I've had 4 14-hour days in a row without watching that much wrestling. Because I do have personal and professional business. So I haven't seen anything yet, but I did record it. So we're going to talk about that on the drive-thru.
Okay.
But anyway, let me get this done and get the bad taste out of my mouth. What they've done here is they put all the best guys that they've got, guys and girls that they've got, on this pay-per-view, which is the same ones they put on TV every week because this is the fucking sum total of what they've got. And they can't put the jokes on pay-per-view. And they can't, maybe, Jimmy Havoc was getting a blood transfusion or something. Who knows where the fuck he was at.
He may have still been sleeping from the night before.
He may still be unconscious from Excalibur stretching him. We don't know about that. But anyway, every one of these matches was so long. The only one that was an acceptable match to pay for, there was a couple matches okay for free television, but the only acceptable match to pay for was Jericho and Cody. That was fantastic. I see a pattern emerging here. And they're already 3 hours into this fucking thing, and we still got Moxley and Olivier to go. And I'm like, okay, lights out match. They're going to have a big brawl. This will be quick at least, right? Oh, no. I hate to use the term self-indulgent.
Well, this is the self-indulgent era of professional wrestling.
But 44 minutes with entrances for this self-indulgent, phony, silly, stupid, embarrassing, big budget, garbage fucking wrestling. And I'm going to be happy to point by point pick this fucking abortion apart, step by step. The only thing that they did right was they actually did turn the lights out. They dimmed the lights and then brought them back up. Obviously, because Eddie Graham invented the lights out match, it's a non-sanctioned event. This is not part of the normal course of proceedings, ladies and gentlemen. The promotion is not responsible. The State Athletic Commission is not responsible. We dimmed the ring lights as a to signify that the regular event is over, and what happens now as we bring them back up is purely on the contestants. That was the idea. That's where the lights out match came from. And Eddie Graham is spinning in his grave to such an extent that he has probably powered the western half of California with a turbine like that. This fucking abortion from the start. Jon Moxley comes off as real and legitimate. He does a good promo, and you can tell he can work. And he's not huge. He doesn't have great size. He doesn't look as badass as Terry Funk. People have compared him as that. No, it doesn't look like he'd kill you like Funk would, but he comes off as fairly real. And Olivier, regardless of whatever the situation is, comes across like a twit, like a fucking simpering twit that's just phony and stagey. And they jump into this thing, and I think, okay, it's going quick. Olivier's in a fight, but he's throwing the forearms because his punches are shitty. Within seconds, they're throwing the garbage in the ring. Then they're out into the fucking crowd. Then they go to the rear of the arena. Of course, they've carefully blocked this out earlier in the day. And they've got security people trying to keep the people back. But once again, as I mentioned, anything can happen. Just because you walk through something in an empty building earlier in the day doesn't mean something else is going to happen. Plus, half the people in this major arena can't see this shit. The cameras can barely get a good shot of it. It's stupid outlaw shit where it's like an Ian Rotten show where they fight around the whole fucking building incessantly, but the whole building is a fucking 400-seat rec center, if that. But in this case, it's goddamn major NBA arena. And it was just stupid. And it was ECW with a budget is what it was. And then they're out in the crowd. And here, number one, they're both big stars, supposedly, in this environment. You would think Moxley would be the heel, but there's really no heel, and they're cheering both guys, and they're out in the crowd, and the people are patting him on the back, or patting both of them on the back. Nobody has any heat. The people are not even convinced they're watching a real fight. As they're struggling and fighting with each other, the people are so scared of these two badasses, think Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen, that they're reaching up and patting them on the back and getting some of the look, real sweat. Nobody's fucking scared, intimidated, whatever. Then, and that's the thing I was going to say about Moxley. He looks like he has talent, can do these things, but if this is the kind of fucking shit he wants to do now that he's been unleashed, I wish he'd go back to prison. Because it'd be better for the goddamn wrestling business if he went back and was stopped from doing what he wants to do, if this is the kind of shit he wants to do. They bring out a barbed wire baseball bat, a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, and then do phony shots with it. It's real barbed wire, but they're hitting the... Explain this to me. It's real barbed wire, but you've got a bat in your hand. Instead of just smiting the guy in the head once and winning the fight, you're raking it across his forehead. You're raking it across his back. You're giving him phony-looking gut shots and phony-looking back shots where the barbed wire's real, but you're not hitting him with the bat. What the... And it's obvious. So they cut Olivier's back up, but the shots that Moxley was using were obviously phony because it's a bat. And whether Bullet Bob Armstrong or me a time or two or any of the other fucking baby faces that have brought the Tennessee toothpick, Bill Watts, whatever, you get a fucking a top heel that has some heat. You apologize beforehand. You know how to swing it. He knows how to take it. You give him one gut shot and he fucking scampers off or is carried out. And it's the big comeback of hitting a few of them at a time. Bang, bang, bang. You do it in the middle of a match, it's fucking stupid. And they did work spots with the bat over and over. It reminded me of when action figures started coming out in the Attitude Era. And the people with the toy companies. Well, here's a doll of Scotty 2 Hottie. So they'd put a toilet seat or a fucking plunger or goddamn a shopping cart in with it. And all the wrestlers' figures had blunt instruments or fucking inanimate objects in them that had no relation to anything because some guy at the toy company watched an episode of Monday Night Raw where there's some shit stain written bullshit where they were fighting with shopping carts and toilet plungers in the bathroom. And assume, okay, this is wrestling. So then the other fucking idiot, not Moxley, the first idiot, but the second idiot, Olivier, not only pulls out a table, which they ended up using later, but a broom wrapped in barbed wire. Because you know he's the cleaner. And he used to have a broom in Japan, so of course everybody knows this. And they did goofy spots with a broom wrapped in barbed wire while they're really hurting each other and taking these bumps, and they are cut up so far. They're doing obviously fake and funny stuff at the same time where Omega's sweeping him with the broom across his bare back. But people are going, ooh. Well, here's an idea. If you don't want a guy with a barbed wire wrapped broom sweeping you on the back, roll over and get the fuck up because it's obvious you can. You dumb fuck. It was stupid. The whole thing was stupid. And the people are cringing because it's real barbed wire, but they're ignoring the fact that they're having a fake fight where they're really hurting each other. There are so many reasons why that this doesn't make sense on so many levels. It's like that goddamn intergalactic chess game that they used to play on Star Trek, where there were multiple levels. Nothing makes sense of this, no matter how you justify any of it. They're having a fake fight and really hurting each other. The people know that it's fake, even though it's supposed to look real, but they're making it look fake. Now Moxley's back of his head was bleeding from one of these stupid stunts they did. And here's another thing later on. Moxley will get a goddamn screwdriver or an ice pick and gouge Kenny Omega's forehead, but he never bled from the forehead. And Moxley got hit over the head with a fucking broom wrapped in barbed wire, but never bled from the forehead. But they're bleeding from the back, and Moxley's bleeding from the back of his head, and we didn't even see which shot did that. Even in a bloodbath, I wrote, Olivier still looks silly and phony. They got another trash can. They spent way too much time looking under the ring for shit because they'd go for the fuck to the wrong side because they'd lost track of what they'd hid. Then they'd have to go look on the other side. Then here comes a giant board covered in mouse traps. They bring that in the ring. Jim Ross has to act, well, it's a new one on me, fans. I've never seen this before. I know as an announcer, the sinking feeling you get in your stomach when you're sitting out there and you're having to call stupid shit that's going to bury you. And I hear the tone in the voice. I felt sorry for him. I've been in that position. So then they took a bump on the mouse traps. Then Moxley brings a long gold chain in, not even an old, rough, rusty logging chain, but a brand new gold chain. And he sidewalk slams Olivier on the pile of chain. They've got a giant logging chain. And instead of using it to hit the guy one time and knock him out, they put the chain on the ground and have the guy take bumps onto the chain. Then Moxley, that's where he couldn't find some more shit. Then he come out with the ice pick. But he stabbed the top turnbuckle and lost it for a little while. So they could take more bumps onto the chain. At this point, I wrote, folks, don't hate this because of the quote-unquote brutality. Hate this because it's silly and phony. Then Olivier hung Moxley over the top with the chain by his neck, but he didn't know how to do it. So Moxley had to do half of it for him, and then Olivier's still posing and making faces, dropping down to his knees and pointing upwards. He's in a goddamn bar fight with mousetraps, but he's still making poses and faces. Then Olivier couldn't find his shit. Then he finds a sack, and he made a face and staggered kind of sideways like he was drunk, and he made a face like his fresh butt plug just fell out. And he brings in a bag of what is purported to be broken glass. And then he takes a big piece and he rips Moxley across the head. Of course, Moxley does not bleed or tries to rip him across the head. So then he rips him in between the fingers. Then he stomps the broken glass in the bag and then dumps the bag out. Brian, you know what sugar glass is, don't you?
Yeah.
Sugar glass is what they make for movie special effects. Instead of, I've actually found out about this in the WWF about 20 years ago, because I thought that when you broke a bottle over somebody's head, you just baked it, cracked it, took care of it, and then broke the real bottle over the guy's head, and what happened, happened. But no, they have fake bottles. But the problem with this sugar glass is, because it's made out of sugar and et cetera, it can't get wet, so it can't hold any water, and also, when you stomp it, it doesn't break and crack like real glass, it just powderizes. Was it a tip-off to you, Brian, when he dumped the bag of glass out and half of it was white powder that he had just stomped a bag of sugar glass?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, actually.
Okay.
Because you didn't know at first. When he pulled out the one shard, you're like, oh, what is,
Okay, well, yeah, we could buy that.
Yeah.
So he pours out the bag of sugar glass. So now they used real barbed wire a little while ago. Now they've gone to fake glass. And you can tell it's fake glass because they didn't know how to take care of it and use it right. And because there's nobody there to produce them and tell them. Then Olivia, besides taking bumps in the glass, but then they're not immediately coming up ripped to shreds. And, they're already bleeding from the back from the shit they've done. But no, this was not real glass. Then he puts some of the fake glass in Moxley's mouth. I bet then he probably had a dry mouth the rest of the night. And they try to it's just, I'm ashamed of wrestling right now, is what I wrote at this point. The glass goes in the mouth. I'm ashamed of wrestling right now. As good and believable and athletic and exciting as the Flair and Steamboat matches were, and you would show it to people who knocked wrestling and it made you proud to be a wrestling fan, and you would say, this is what we like. This was the exact opposite. It was phony. It was distasteful on multiple levels. It was disgusting. It was stupid. It was silly. This is the kind of stuff you hide from people who don't like wrestling, because it makes people who like wrestling ashamed to like wrestling. Then Olivier stalked Moxley with an ice pick with the goofy horror movie face and stabbed him in the face, obviously phony. Then Olivier, they're back on the ramp now, halfway back to the back, and Olivier is screaming, "Bring it," to his cohorts, the Young Bucks, who just happen to be standing by. They don't want to bring it. Finally, okay. And they wheel out a framework with what is basically a barbed wire trampoline. What was that thing? 15 feet across each way, 15 feet square?
Something like that, like a web.
And a web of barbed wire and all the barbed wire shit and whatever the fuck. This is when I did pause it and leave the room for a minute, because I was going to get mad. I was determined to see this thing out, but I had to walk around for a minute. This thing, there's no way they could have got this to the ring. First of all, there's no purpose that this is not a real thing. This is something that they made up, that they built to take a bump into. It's not a real thing. It serves no other purpose. So they built something to wheel to the ramp that in this fight they were going to be in, Olivier knew that they would somehow end up on the ramp because you couldn't get it to the ring. So it was only going to be useful if you could get your opponent halfway back to the locker room down the ramp in this place where this thing could be wheeled up next to it. And then it was only good if you took a bump off the ramp into the thing. And then they teased throwing each other off into the fucking thing. And then they took a bump into the thing. How did Olivier, as I said, know that he'd need it? How did he know they'd be in the right place? How did he figure this would help him win? It's all so fucking stupid. And then they did the reversals and finally a suplex, and both of them went into the barbed wire. And I got news for you. I'm willing to be proven wrong. If somebody whose word I respect or opinion I take seriously or whatever was to tell me it was real barbed wire, then I'd say, okay, but this was phony as a football bat barbed wire. Because they landed in it and got hung up in it, and they got back up, and nobody was ripped significantly more than they were to begin with. So they either used fake barbed wire after the fake glass, or there's no other fucking explanation. Would they not have been severely damaged more than that by taking that bump into real barbed wire? 4-pronged barbed wire that they use on farms that I've seen many a time since I was a child?
I thought the same thing. Like there was some blood early in the match, and then as the match kept going, there was less blood. I mean, they're using glass, they're barbed wire web, somehow no blood.
And then the referees and all the fucking ring crew and everybody takes like 10 people forever to get these 2 stupid fucks out of this thing, and the whole thing died. They didn't have a lot of momentum to begin with because this was taken for fucking ever. And then they took a bump through one of the fucking set lights, and I wrote, why won't this end? And then there comes Olivier out of the fucking light with a goofy face, and they go back to the ring, and then Moxley cuts the canvas off, which takes forever, and takes off the pad and uncovers the wood, and they take bumps on the wood. And I look now, we are over 3.5 hours into this fucking show, and I didn't see the pre-show. I'm talking about the actual pay-per-view. Almost 40 minutes into this fucking hokey-ass, big-budget Ian Rotten Mud Show bullshit that they're putting on pay-per-view for $50 fucking dollars. Then Moxley kicks out of a DDT on the wood. Then Olivier begins his grand climb pose where he stops at the buckles and points up and looks up and then takes his exaggerated steps and then realizes, oh, wait, breaks character of the whole thing, drags Moxley a foot farther out, just 1 foot, and then does the climb again and misses his goddamn flippy thingy onto the wood, 2 count. What the fuck? And then Moxley DDTs him on the wood, 1, 2, 3. And then just to make sure that everybody knows that this new promotion is going to treat wrestling seriously as a sport and be a mainstream success on national television and everything, Moxley flips off the camera with a double bird and because he thinks he's Steve Austin and says fuck and motherfucker at least twice into the camera after he's already shit on the business and everything involved in it. What the fuck? That's what they ended their show that they charged us $50 with 1 good match on it, with the only guy in the company. How does Cody coexist with the fucking opera star, old Olivier? I can't wait to hear him sing. Bet he sings just like fucking Susan Boyle.
Riho.
Oh, Riho. And the 2 fucking grade school kids. How does Cody coexist with them doing this horse shit in all of their matches? And he goes out, steals the show effortlessly every time. He and Jericho have the only good matches, have the only matches that make sense, have the only matches that get the point across, that draw money, clearly defined heel and babyface, heat, point to a future match, set up a stipulation, the things that wrestling does. And every other motherfucker on that roster, except for guys like Daniels and Kazarian and those guys who know what the fuck to do and just don't have anybody to do it with. But everybody else is the next step up from the goddamn grade school gym in Wartburg, Tennessee at a fucking outlaw show in front of 100 people. They just can't get it. And there's Arn Anderson was there. I don't expect the great Muta to be a great wrestling coach unless it's for the Japanese contingent. There may be a language barrier, but Arn Anderson, if anybody's listening to him, is there. Is it that they're just not listening to the professionals, or is it that the professionals are happy to get a check and not telling them? Certainly to God, somebody in the locker room at the end of this last fiasco had to call Kenny Olivier over in the corner and go, okay, we can't do this any fucking more. Certainly, one would think. If they're giving him free, not only on the girls' fiasco, but on his fucking abortion of a match. Somebody's got to say at some point, okay, we're burning money and opportunity quickly. And we need to get these fucking outlaw drama class fucking dropouts in line. Somebody recognizes in that company that this is not good long term, I would think. Do you think?
I think
they?
There may be more than one person that recognizes that the schizophrenic nature of this overindulgent, self-indulgent, I'll use that again, the self-indulgent era of wrestling, that the schizophrenic nature of this show is not conducive to building an audience. Because I am someone who has been required to watch this show for several weeks, and I end up really looking forward to Cody, to Chris Jericho, two guys I have done nothing but criticize for years. And I've come to really look forward to their work on the show. MJF, Jon Moxley does some good promos, but everything else, I can't wait for you to see this fucking Wednesday night show. But everything else, it's schizophrenic. Nothing leads you to want to see something that's on the next segment. I see Cody and I see Jericho, and I end up watching the rest of the show because I have to, but I always think to myself, if I stopped watching now, I'd be okay.
I'd be happy.
I wouldn't miss anything. And you know what? I'd be right every single time.
Well, and there's basically the thing is, you watch these segments, the Jericho segments, the Cody segments, matches like that, the angles that they've done, that's what gets people to watch wrestling, watch television show, buy tickets, whatever. And once you get those people, wrestling fans, you've got them for a long time. It used to be for life. I won't say that anymore because now a lot of promotions have ways of running people off. But the only audience you get for this video game bullshit and this fucking glorified big budget Ian Rotten garbage wrestling horseshit. And as I said, and by the way, I did steal that. Somebody tweeted me actually that Olivier's faces look like his fucking butt plug just fell out. But you got a guy that thinks he's the best wrestler in the world, prissy prancing around like a ballet dancer, emoting like Laurence Olivier and making faces like his butt plug just fell out on national television. That ain't going to get you. That's going to get you the fans that watch until they come up with the next fad, whatever it may be, the next video game or the next other thing or the next fucking goofy video show to watch. Tosh.0, whatever. You don't get long-term fans. And sometimes when the people who watch for that type of match between Cody and Jericho or that type of angle that they've been doing the serious stuff at the top, they might actually stick around and watch the rest of the shit if you didn't give them exactly what they don't want, which is this silly video game bullshit and fucking comedy that nobody thinks is funny except the people doing it. So you run those people off with the rest of the show. So I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, this has been a grand experiment. But after this show, and now after this show, I was going to say I'm done watching AEW. My interest level is at a fucking nil. But now you tell me that I got to watch this fiasco from Wednesday. So on the drive-thru, we'll watch NXT, the wrestling show, and we'll watch All Elite Wrestling, the modern version of fucking hee-haw, and see who pops out of the cornfield.
Plus some questions, and of course the theme song contest will continue. But yeah, you haven't lived yet, Jim, until you've seen the Dark Order versus Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt.
Oh, fucking hell. All right. Well, folks, tune in the drive-thru this week. It's going to be lovely.
If I could say a positive, though, one good thing about the way things got set up coming out of this is now there's going to be two segments I want to see. Because if you're going to have MJF feuding with Cody, there's one.
Well, there you go.
And whatever Chris Jericho is going to do, there's two.
And MJF is featured prominently on Wednesday night's program.
There's an MJF and Chris Jericho segment that I'm not even going to say, I want to actually hear what you're going to think of it, if you think they went the right way with it, but it's something you're going to want to see. And then there's a lot of other stuff.
And there's a lot of, all right.
But NXT, there's stuff on NXT I think you're really going to like too.
Well, good. This coming Sunday, we'll review NXT and whatever they're calling AEW this week. And as long as MJF is on it, it can't be all bad. And speaking of things that are not all bad, this program isn't either, because the one good thing, it's come to an end. Until Sunday on the drive-thru, when we malign more cretinous individuals for Brian and Harley and Swami and the whole hee-haw gang. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.